Hello, this is Xbox Ahoy, and this is the 29th episode of my Black Ops 2 Weapon Guide. This time, we're covering the Hammer. Unlocked to level 37, we round out the LMG selection with this weapon's debut appearance within the Call of Duty series. The Hammer, or Heat Adaptive Modular Rifle, is a Belgian weapon designed by FN Herstal for the US Infantry automatic rifle requirement in 2008. The weapon is based on the existing SCAR design, with some modifications made for the sustained fire requirement of the IAR program. The heat adaptive part of the name refers to the automatic switching from a closed bolt to open bolt operation as the weapon's barrel heats up during firing. This grants the accuracy benefit of closed bolt operation during semi-automatic fire, with the superior heat dissipation of an open bolt design for sustained use. The Hammer entered into the same trials as its German rival from HK, the M27, and ultimately it was the M27 that came out on top, and was selected as the winner of the IAR competition. Nevertheless, the SCAR design has seen some success of its own, with the United States Marine Corps and SOCOM amongst the platform's users. In-game, damage is good, very similar to the LSAT's damage, albeit with a very slight reduction in range. You'll kill in 3 shots up close, and may need up to 5 shots at a distance. Effective range is fairly generous, however, so you can expect consistent performance, and the Hammer's ability to penetrate walls is good too. Output is unusual, but in a good way. The first 7 shots are fired more quickly, with the weapon settling down into a slower sustained rate of fire. These first 7 rounds are fired at a rate of 940 rounds per minute, comparable to most SMGs, and combined with the high damage, this initial flurry makes the Hammer very effective at a close range. The sustained fire rate is 625 rounds per minute, a little less deadly up close, but much easier to control at a distance. Prolonged fire can be used to great effect over longer ranges. Rapid fire will make the Hammer fire at 940 rounds per minute continuously, and so is probably best left off the weapon, as burst firing will grant a similar level of output. Hipfire is on par with the other LMGs, not spectacular in terms of spread, but the initial output will quite happily repel any close range attackers in relatively short order. Recoil varies with the fire rate. Initially, your accuracy will be poor, but once the fire rate settles, recoil becomes very mild indeed. As long as you can rest your aim onto target after the initial burst, you'll find the Hammer is capable at most ranges. Aim time is slow, identical to the other LMGs at 450 milliseconds, and movement is similarly slow at just 90% of the base speed. Magazine capacity is good by any measure, but on the lower end of the LMG scale at 75 rounds. Extended clip takes this capacity to 100 rounds instead. Being magazine fed rather than belt fed, reloads are tolerable at least, although you will resupply slightly slower than the QBB at 4.25 seconds per mag change. Our build with the Hammer takes advantage of the weapon's innate versatility and the lack of demand for any specific addition. To that end, we'll be taking an extremely perk-heavy approach, sacrificing attachments and equipment for the maximum possible perk payload. First up then is the Perk 1 Greed wildcard, permitting 2 choices from the first tier. Our first perk choice is Flak Jacket, reducing incoming explosive damage and greatly improving overall survivability. This is always a useful option for a defensive class, as you will be a prime target for enemy grenades. So, donning this defensive option will help keep you alive to attain the higher streaks. Similarly useful in score streak regards, Hardline is our second perk choice in the first tier, improving score streak point accrual by 20%. Easier UAVs will assist an LMG build in terms of better positioning and preparedness, and you can further leverage this score streak advantage to shoot for the higher, altogether more deadly streaks, and punish your opposition from the sky as well as on the ground. Next up, the Perk 2 Greed wildcard permits another 2 perks, this time from the second tier. First of the 2 is Toughness, reducing flinch from incoming damage and ensuring that you remain on target as much as possible. This perk will swing gunfights in your favour, and when paired with a weapon capable of sustained fire and a good defensive position, you'll be unstoppable. Your only real opponent will be your limited ammunition supply, but Scavenger as your 4th perk will remedy this somewhat. If you remain stubbornly encamped in one position, you might still run dry, so when you switch locations, be sure to pick up the blue packs your enemies drop to keep yourself supplied. It might also be wise to pick up a fallen enemy's weapon too, You never know when you might need a fresh mag to fall back to. We round out our perk heavy build with the third and final wildcard, perk 3 Greed. First up in this tier is another choice ideal for defensive builds, Tactical Mask. This complements Flak Jacket and Toughness nicely for the perfect tough guy class. Your sights will be as clear and as steady as possible at all times, despite your enemy's efforts to dislodge you. We round out these defensive abilities with something which will serve you well in closer quarters too. The addition of Dexterity will give you an edge in maneuverability over other LMG classes, as your recovery from sprinting will be improved. The Hammer's hipfire is surprisingly effective, with a high damage yet rapid fire of the initial 7-round flurry. So getting close to your opponent isn't necessarily a bad idea, as you are well equipped to repel them. Well, that's our build. A very versatile class for a very versatile weapon. A blend of absolute resistivity with some other useful traits. Easier streaks, constant supply, and a better ability to compete in unexpected gunfights. This is a flexible weapon and supports a great deal of diversity when it comes to choosing your loadout. 6 perks might seem wasteful, but honestly the hammer works just fine without any attachment. And while some options are useful, the perks on offer can carry greater benefit. Still, there's no real downside to mixing up the class a little should you desire. Flexibility and adaptability are this weapon's speciality. When the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem might as well be a nail. The hammer is a well-rounded weapon that handles well and hits hard. The dual fire rate means it is an oddball, but it can work to your advantage. The rapid burst can be a lifesaver in close quarters, and once the weapon settles, you can put down accurate suppressive fire to quite some effect. All in, the hammer is a great handling weapon that doesn't demand a particular attachment to be effective. A versatile tool with an interesting twist. Of course, there are some downsides. Notably, you'll suffer from the usual slow handling traits of an LMG. The reload speed isn't too bad, but can prove inconvenient. The initial rapid burst of shots can quickly chew through your magazine, meaning you will have to endure a resupply relatively often. In addition, the higher recoil of the rapid-fire burst can make it difficult to acquire long-range targets rapidly. A more accurate opponent may have the advantage over such sightlines. Still, as long as you position yourself well, you will prove difficult to dislodge, with a resistive perk set and a weapon that's effective at most ranges. Simply put, you can't touch this weapon's versatility. So, if you're too legit to quit, then stop. Hammer time. Thanks for watching. This has been Xbox Ahoy. Join me next week when I'll be covering the Scar H. Until then, farewell.